Hello everyone and welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're doing good and well. So it's time for my annual Christmas sign-off video, and this is becoming somewhat traditional on the Green Man channel, is that shortly before Christmas I record a video of me sort of reflecting on the year as a whole for the channel. But for the second year running, I'm also doing a question and answer session. So thank you very much. If you submitted some questions for me to answer, I will answer those as honestly as I can when we come to that. You may actually just want to skip straight to that part of the video, and I'll put a little timestamp in the description box so you can go and do that if you don't want to watch me whittering on in the first part of the video effectively, because the first part of the video is going to be me reflecting on the past year, on the channel generally, and covering some of the different topics of the channel, maybe talking a bit about Symphonic Sundays, as that was kind of I feel like the big series on the channel this year. And also talking a little bit about horror maybe and fantasy and the other topics of the channel as well. But then after that, I will move on to the question and answer session. So I'll answer your guys' questions. And actually, truthfully, I did upload a version of this video and I realised I'd missed a question of it. And this also gives me the opportunity to answer a question that was asked shortly after I uploaded the video as well. So I'm now able to answer that question too. So just thanks again, all of you who submitted questions for the Q&A. And also, so let's move on to sort of reflecting on this past year for the channel. I'm really pleased at the moment, just because I suppose the year-end videos are doing really well. Particularly, I mean, there's one video that has kind of taken off. I mean, at least in terms of, the usual performance of my videos, the Albums of the Year video has really kind of, I think it's around getting close to 2,000 views, which for my channel, that is a massive number of views. It really is. I know for lots of big YouTubers out there, it's kind of almost a laughable number, right? But I think that's a great for this channel, and it's actually pushed me well above my target for the end of the year, which was just 600 subscribers. A few months ago, I was thinking that'd probably be about what I get, because I was taking a 3-month hiatus. So I'm really pleased with that. I'm happy. I'm now in sort of around 630 at the time of recording this particular video, so that's just great. But anyway, I don't like to talk too much on performance of the channel and things like that, because really I'm the only person that's really probably all that bothered about that. So what I will talk about next is, highlights of the year for the channel in terms of, the content and the topics of the channel in particular. I think this has been just maybe the best year for metal since I've been doing this channel and doing album reviews for this channel, because I can't think of just so many weekends or so many Friday releases where you just have lots of great albums coming out almost week on week, and just so many strong albums. And it made the year-end list especially difficult for me this year. I think there weren't so many non-metal picks, because I just found there were so many really great metal albums that I was thinking, actually, I think that metal album is better than non-metal. And I don't just want to put non-metal albums in for the sake of it unless I really like them. Obviously, in the case of Ali X, Julia Holter, I suppose you could call David Gilmour non-metal, because that's more kind of prog rock. And also the Leathers album as well. All non-metal picks there, but normally I have more than that, but I think that's also a sign of just how many great metal releases we had in 2024. It has been a terrific year for metal, and I think you'd be hard pressed to argue against that. There have just been so many really, really strong metal releases this year. So whilst we're still on music, I did want to do a thank you to all of those of you that maybe guested on Symphonic Sundays, and offered your time up to that series. Obviously, we had some special guests, particularly a lot of singers and vocalists for that series. So, but first of all, I want to thank Hector, especially because Children on the Couch, because he really helped make those interviews actually happen for me. And without him, I'm pretty sure 3 or 4 of those interviews probably wouldn't have even happened. So thanks, Hector, dude. Thanks very much for helping to make that series a series and get those interviews sorted, because I really enjoyed doing those interviews for Symphonic Sundays. I feel like symphonic metal is one of those genres that people certainly tend to judge in a certain way, and I like to cover genres that sometimes get that kind of treatment and try and sort of explore them a bit more, get to know the people that are actually part of what people would think of as those kind of genres or those styles of music, and get their thoughts on being in those sorts of bands, and you know, how they're perceived and how they think their bands are doing and all those sorts of things. And obviously I also like to pick out favourite songs from bands as well, and you know, how they, you know, their live performances go and things like that. So you can check out Symphonic Sundays, it's all in a playlist. And I'd also like to thank out the guests that, what was the musicians. So the likes of Elena Sirala from Leaves Eyes, that was a really big booking for me. You also had the likes of Elena Gavrilenko, who was a fantastic guest for the channel. She is from the band Everdawn, and I really think we can look forward to more from them in the future, if you know, anything like the albums I've heard from them so far. That's certainly a band to be excited about. Also, you've got Barbara Blackthorne from Empress, another really exciting sort of progressive symphonic metal band. I'd say that band, they're really interesting. You've also got, who else did we have? Nicoletta Rossellini of Alterium, also previously of Calidia, she was a great guest. Had Salvo Grasso of Hypersonic, the drummer. I think he was also a multi-instrumentalist, possibly producer, as well as I recall, and he is, you know, that album actually is a really good one that almost made my end of year list. That's a really good album, that Hypersonic album, that latest release that we talked about. Have I missed anybody out? Obviously JC helped out with the Nightwish ranking, and also the Beyond the Black albums ranked, as I recall, with Hector. So I mean, just so many great episodes. I feel like I've missed somebody. Who have I missed? Oh, Krista Sion of Dilith as well, and she was great. And actually her EP, her band's EP, made the top 5 EPs of the year. So Symphonic Sundays, I regard it as a success for me to have done that, and to have also gotten used to doing more interviews. I mean, interviews aren't my kind of first choice of things to do on the channel. I kind of do them as a bit of an add-on when I feel like I want to do them and I'm in the right frame of mind to do interviews. I'm sort of quite specific in that way, and I like to prepare for them as well. So great to have done that for this year. And it may be that I do another series for a particular genre or subgenre of metal, but we'll wait and see, because I think interviews are a particular time commitment, and you also have to cater for your guests as well. So they're a particular time commitment, not always easy to do. So otherwise, we move on to horror just briefly, because this video is already going on quite a while. I don't want to make it massive. But horror, I would say, first 6 months of the year, pretty disappointing. Second 6 months of the year, absolutely great. And interestingly, I find that this year for me was like the reverse of last year. So last year, 2023, had a really strong first half, really strong first 6 months of films. But then the second half had, for me, a slightly weaker. I mean, everyone's, you know, it depends on what you go to see, doesn't it? It depends which films you see. But I think this year had a strong second half for horror. And I know the temptation is to say, well, it's spooky season in that part of the year anyway, it's going to be stronger. I don't necessarily agree with that, because like I say, last year's first half was really strong for me for horror, and yet this year's kind of flipped that round a bit. I'm not going to talk about fantasy books too much, just because I did hardly any fantasy book content this year. And I realise those of you that maybe subbed in the early days of the channel when I used to do a lot more fantasy book content might be a little bit disappointed I've not been doing as much of that. I do think, though, I'm somebody that likes to try and make the videos at least kind of as good as I can, and I feel like I don't want to kind of rush through books. And I feel like books are the biggest investment of time out of films and music and books. I feel like books are the biggest investment of time. You know, to read through them all, to sort of analyse them, etc., etc. So, yeah, that's why there hasn't been. I've had a very busy year. I would actually say 2024 has been the busiest, hardest working year of my life. So to put that into context, that's with the hiatus as well. It's just been the busiest, most hardest working year of my entire life. And I say that with confidence, that 2024 has been that for me personally. And sure, you know, I'm sure other people probably have had even busier, hard-working lives than me. I'm not sort of saying anything different, but for me, this has been a long, tough year. But great music, you know, has helped me through certainly. Anyway, we need to get to Q&As because we're 10 minutes in. I've got a fair number of questions, actually, more than I'd expected to get. More questions than I'd expected to get. So we need to crack on with these. And that's where I'm going to start. Now, I'm going to anonymise people this year. Just as, you know, last year, I think some of you prefer to be anonymised rather than necessarily be named in these videos. And that's fine. I don't mind doing that. Better to err on the side of caution, maybe. So I'm going to do that this year with the questions, although I think some of you know who you, and I interact with you a lot anyway, so we'll see how this goes. And coming up as the first question I have a question. Hey Tom, I have a question for your upcoming Q&A video. I'm a big fan of the Name of the Wind books, which you did a review of. My question is, do you think this series will ever get made into a movie or a Netflix series? Maybe a movie. Yeah, because I don't think I would do Name of the Wind. Now, I've only read the first book, and I know there's more in that series, so I should say that first. I think it could be like maybe a film. Not sure about a TV series. Which actors would you like to see in it? That's a tricky one, because it was a while back that I read this book, to be honest. It's kind of... I remember Kavoth, Bast, maybe someone like Joseph Quinn. I don't know. Tricky one. I like Joseph Quinn a lot as an actor. Maybe he could play Bast, actually, rather than Kavoth, thinking about it. He still looks pretty young. Maybe he could pull that off. So, thank you very much for that question. Also, I think this is from the same subscriber. Thank you very much. Can I ask how much time you spend listening to music? On average, maybe, let's say, let's attach a time frame to this, maybe weekly. I probably listen. Now, it might be surprising, I don't listen to a lot during the week. I listen to loads of music at weekends, because that's my opportunity, really. You know, I guess I'm helped I don't have children or anything like that, so like, weekends are my time to just listen to as much music as I possibly can. It's usually Friday nights, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, sometimes Saturday evening too. Sundays I listen to a lot of music as well. I don't listen to music much when I'm working, if at all, because my work requires me to be on hand a lot, and I find music a distraction, or at least I'd have to stop and start the music constantly with my job, and I wouldn't want to do that. I like to listen to music mostly uninterrupted, so I don't like to listen to it at work, I'll say that. So I don't know if that answers your question, because you actually said how much time do you spend listening to it. I didn't really answer that. I guess it gives you an idea though. Let's just give a ballpark figure, maybe 20 hours per week. It's actually not that much, perhaps more than that, 25 hours even. Maybe that's still quite a lot of time, I think, to listen to music in a week. Next question. Hi Tom, questions. Do you like The Cure? Have you listened to their brand new record? And if you did, what's your opinion about it? So I only listened to this album partly because of this question, actually. I did mean to check the album out anyway, but then I saw this question and thought, yeah, I need to listen to this album because a lot of people are saying how good it is. I thought it was very, very good. My favourite songs from this album were Alone and All I Ever Am. I really liked those two tracks. And I liked the rest of the album quite a bit too. Not spent maybe enough time with it to make a final judgment. You know, would it have made my end of year list, for instance? I'm not totally sure. Maybe it would, the way I feel about it right now. Certainly like a top 40 list. I think I'd probably have it in there somewhere. So yeah, and this next question is a really tough one. This was a really tough question I had to think about. If you had to pick out some artists for your dream band, whom would these be in a lineup consisting of 5 people? So I did come up with a lineup, and it was a bit random. I tried to mix up old and new sort of musicians, and it's a little chaotic, but I think it could be a really interesting band. So we've got on drums Brandela, of course the Mastodon drummer, very experienced, very versatile drummer. So I thought I'd have him. Love his drumming, have done for years. Bassist Steve DiGiorgio, again an experienced musician, very experienced musician. Been in lots of different bands, does lots of different styles. I think, you know, thrash, death, all sorts of things. Thought he'd be good. Interesting rhythm guitar, James Hetfield. I went with James Hetfield. So that means he's not on vocals, because I'm having him, because I love his rhythm guitar work. James Hetfield is a great rhythm guitarist. He's a great rhythm guitarist. So I'm having him on rhythm guitar, but not on lead vocal duties. I'll save that for someone else. That's going to be an interesting take. Lead guitarist Marty Friedman, one of my all-time favourite lead guitarists. I think he would be great in almost any band, perhaps, because he's just so, so gifted. And my singer is going to be, wait for it, Courtney LaPlante. And I just thought it'd be interesting to do this. Bunch of men. Let's put a woman in the mix and let's see what happens. And someone as good a singer as her, very dynamic, lots of range. I'm sure she could work well with the rest of these guys in the band, and you could get something very interesting at the end of it. So that's my answer to that question. Thank you very much for that question. So next up we've got, given his recent retirement from Iron Maiden, how would you describe Nico McBrain's drumming? Great drummer. I really like his drumming in the album Peace of Mind. I think his drumming in that album is absolutely brilliant, and particularly on the track When Eagles Dare. Where Eagles Dare, I think that is, his introduction. He's kind of really good at those rolls, maybe on the toms. I'm not a drummer myself, so I'm not exactly a drumming expert. Apologies, but I think he's a great drummer. Yeah. Are there any other genres of music? So how would you describe Nico McBrain's drumming? Yeah, I don't really know. Don't know the drummer terminology perhaps well enough to be able to say exactly how you musically describe it. But I think he's a great drummer. Really good for Iron Maiden style. Just really good for that old school heavy metal style, I think. Are there any other genres of music that you didn't like, but then became a fan of? Not many. I've kind of stuck to most genres I love over the years, or, and not really turned to like many that I haven't liked before. So I've never really been a big fan of hip hop or R&B, for instance. So I've never really kind of gotten into them. But I can think maybe extreme metal to some extent, because I was never really that into the harsh vocal side of metal. But then with bands like Killswitch Engage that I discovered in my late teenage years, listening to Jesse Leach's screams really changed my view on harsh vocals, because I loved how those fit in with Killswitch Engage's style of music at that time. And Alive or Just Breathing was a bit of a life-changing album for me. I've always said that. I think it's also been listed on my top 40 albums of all time because of that reason, and it was a bit of a gateway into actually appreciating what bands do with the screams and the harsh vocals. And Killswitch, a big part of my teenage years. Generally, they were a huge influence on my taste in music at that time. So that answers your question, I think. So I guess extreme metal I wasn't really originally a fan of, didn't particularly like it, but then became a fan of it. What are your most anticipated releases of 2025? I know who this question's from, and I'm sure you won't mind me saying, Hector, Children on a Couch. What are your most anticipated releases? Spirit Box in Army Sea, Dream Theater Parasomnia. I haven't actually got them written down here. Arch Enemy Blood Dynasty. I think that one is one I'm really looking forward to based on the singles so far for that album. Also, Stephen Wilson, I think, is expected to release next year, although it doesn't feel long ago he last released one, but I don't think it was that last year he released one in 2023? Someone else who I think we're expecting new material from next year is Hatchie. I did see, I think, an Instagram post from her actually saying, stop asking me about the new album. So I'm not certain when that's being released, if it is being released. But anything, I really liked her last album in particular. And so I don't actually, if you don't know Hatchie, because I guess most of you on the channel are more metalheads than you necessarily are kind of indie or alternative music type fans. So Hatchie is very much kind of, I don't know how to describe her music best, maybe dream pop kind of stuff. And I really loved her last album. It kind of brought about a bit of a retro 90s sounds and Cocteau Twins elements and things like that. And I'm really into that kind of stuff. I thought she was going to have a new album out late this year, but I think, based on that Instagram post as well, maybe it's not going to be until next year. But that's one I'm really looking forward to if it does come out, because loved that last album from her. Also, Testament, I think we're expecting music from them next year, so that's another band. What is your favourite and least favourite thing about making YouTube videos? This is the last question. And this is a really good one. I'm not sure, it's a tricky one. What's your favourite and least favourite thing? I think my favourite thing is, I mean, to be honest, it's seeing great reactions to the content that I post. That is really great. But also seeing how the videos end up, you know, seeing them in their final version sometimes and seeing, oh yeah, that's turned out pretty well. I like how that's turned out, because it kind of shows, you know, the work you've done has paid off, and I think there is just something really nice about that. So maybe that's my favourite thing. Least favourite thing about making them is probably time spent. It's probably time spent, because I think if you really want to do that video that's as good as you can make it with your own skills and abilities, then but you spend hours and hours and hours on it, then I think that's my least favourite thing, is just that it consumes so much time to do video. Not this video. This video is an easy one. This video is an easy one for me to do, but some of the list videos that take a lot of preparation and where you're kind of changing your mind sometimes, and I do a lot of notes for my videos as well, just because I like to I'm a very structured person. It's just who I am. I'm just very structured. So I do sort of a lot of planning around them as well. So yeah, I'd say it's the time. That's kind of the thing. You're like, oh, have I really spent that much time on just a YouTube video? Yes, I have, is the truth. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed the Q&As. I hope I answered your questions to some degree of satisfaction for you, and apologies if I didn't. But anyway, I hope you guys all have absolutely fantastic Christmases and New Year's. If you don't celebrate Christmas, fair enough. Hope you have a great New Year. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the new year in 2025. Like I say, there is another video to come that's sort of this kind of format, a longer format. And I'm planning on doing maybe a couple of shorts or a few shorts just to keep things going in the meantime. But again, thanks once again, guys. Great to have your support. And until next time, it's bye for now.